16, I ended up having a surgery, and that's when I first was introduced to opiates. I had experimented with other things in the past, but opiates were kind of like the green light. I graduated high school, I went to school at WVU, I flunked out a couple different times and went on like the 7-year plan. But I guess the bigger difference was when most people could stop, once I'd start, I just couldn't stop. And eventually I left Morgantown, and I tried different jobs. I probably worked at 40 different restaurants in a period of 6 years, partially because I needed to be able to afford to continue to use because insurance didn't cover what I'd moved on to. And the increasing amounts, when they talk about the disease being progressive, I didn't start out one day and decide that I was going to be a needle-using heroin addict. That's not how it went. It took years and over a decade for me to get to that point. But it's I was raised with morals and values, and no matter what my intentions were, when I'd start to feel I basically had no coping mechanisms, and the only coping mechanism I'd ever had was drinking and drug use. And I could put together small blocks of time where I could stop and start to function a little bit, but at some point, either life would feel like it was moving too fast, or I would be celebrating a victory, or mourning a loss or a failure. I would immediately pick back up to the only thing that ever, I guess the best way to put it is gave me some sort of relief that helped me separate myself from the world around me. As this disease usually does, it progressed and got significantly worse. I went from being a remotely functional member of society to not having a job, to starting to catch charges and go to jail periodically. I ended up becoming homeless, and at some point, so many attempts and so many failures to try and either control it or to stop, I just become resigned to the fact that I was going to die a junkie. That's all I could ever aspire to because I couldn't quit. And at some point, it becomes easier just to isolate yourself from the people you care about. I went years and years, periods sometimes without talking to my mother or my sister, just because you get tired of disappointing everyone that has any faith in you, especially when there was always this belief deep inside that I was going to go back, no matter how well things were going. Because I've had periods where things would go well, only to pull it all down on top of me again, and knowing that was coming. Towards the end, about 20 months ago, it had gotten to its worst point. My car broke down, which is where I'd been living. It was right around the time in Charleston there was about 20 inches of snow on the ground. I went to the hospital a couple times for frostbite because the choice was either share what I had gotten to make me not sick and have a place to stay, or to be by myself and not wake up sick in the morning. And so I chose to almost freeze to death a couple times. Eventually, there was a harm reduction program that opened up in Charleston, a needle exchange. And I believe it was the second time they were actually open. I went in there, just trying to be in and out and not be seen, because at this point I'm so far removed from society. The last thing I want to do is run into people I know. And coincidentally, I ran into the girl who ended up, the lady who eventually ended up running the Charleston Women's Facility, was one of my friends from college. And she came up and talked to me and asked why I was there. And for the most part, I lied to her for why I was there, but for the most part, she knew why I was there. I wasn't fooling anyone at this point. I had track marks, I looked sick, I probably smelled terrible. And she told me if I wanted to do something different, she could help me get into recovery. And so, of course, I didn't ask her that day. I waited for it to get worse about 3 weeks later, to the point where I just couldn't stand it. And it got to a point where I was either going to die, or actively kill myself, or do anything. And I asked her for help, and she had me a bed in Huntington within 24 hours. Because of the way I lived, it took me about 3 days to get there. But she got me in a bed, and to be completely honest, I was just so relieved. I hadn't slept in a bed in probably 5 or 6 months at that point. I was just so relieved that I actually made it, but I had no idea what I was walking into. I remember being woke up bright and early in the morning and feeling almost sick, looking around, and people are walking around smiling and in good moods and having a good time. At first, it really angered me. I was just and I knew some of these people. I used with some of these people in the past, and to see that they looked healthy, or looked like they were in shape, or they didn't have bags under their eyes, and they weren't miserable, because I shared a lot of misery with a lot of people over the years, because that's pretty much all we had to give each other. And slowly, like, I got out of the detox portion and I started the program. And I remember the first question I asked somebody was, I was like, why would you all put a rehab in what appears to be like the Huntington's version of the ghetto? And then somebody looked at me and told me that you have to go to the battlefield to fight the war. And so I did what they asked me to do. At first, not by choice. It was better than going back to the nothingness that I had. But at some point, it started to change. Like, they made me start to believe that it was possible for my intentions to meet my actions. And that's where I felt like I'd fallen short for years. Like, it's not like I intended to be an awful person or do terrible things or neglect family or lie to people. It's just that I always had to keep my eye on whatever the prize was, and the prize was always getting the next one. Recovery Point of Huntington absolutely changed my life in every fashion, in every form possible, to be completely honest. Like, I have an actual relationship with my mother. I have a relationship with my sister for the first time in our entire lives. I get to be present as a boyfriend, a boyfriend, as an uncle, as a son. More than anything, like, some things, like, they afforded me many opportunities. Like, when things go wrong in life, which they do, they help me figure out a way to deal with it without running back to the only thing I ever known. Before, in the past, when I tried recovery, it's like I would be in this dangerous spot where it's like they've taken my only coping mechanism, now what do I do? At Recovery Point, they surrounded me with people who showed me how to do anything different than what I'd always done. It absolutely changed my life. I was blessed to get to work with a guy named Jay Pike, who helped me prepare to, like, come and work in a kitchen and help build another program, which has been the absolute, like, greatest blessing of my life, because I've had so much fun just getting this started and working for him, and I cannot wait to see what happens here in Parkersburg once people get through. Thank you, guys.